Welcome back, guys, to another episode of the CineMatch podcast. I'm not even going to really run with the same intro anymore because I usually say the show where we take two different movies every week, but that seems to be changing every week now. We're trying
Just take
different stuff.
we just take movies.
Yeah,
I
we
actually,
take
to be
movies
fair,
until,
I was looking at the Instagram page and I edited the bio because it was like two movies. Like, no, it's not two movies, it's movies.
yeah, it's every movie. We take
Yeah,
every movie eventually.
eventually.
But yeah, we obviously take different movies every week, and we usually find different ways to rate them and rank them, which we will be putting a spin on today.
Love us.
Um, Yeah, my name is Cal Altimus. I'm sticking with Cal, and I am your host. And joining me, as he does every single week, is my lovely co-host. I'm
Compliment this
lovely
week.
this time. I
Compliment.
might rotate it each week. One week I might be nice, and the next I might be horrible, just to balance things out.
Just keep me on my toes.
Yeah, but yeah, joining me is my co-host, Mr. Nathan Hanna. Nathan, how are you?
All good. How are you?
Tired? Very busy weekend. Very busy weekend. Best weekend of
Watching
my life, to be fair.
watching the wrestling and then straight into is it Heather's the musical you watched?
Heathers, yeah. Yeah, it was one extreme to the other. Well, it was watching wrestling in Wembley Stadium trying to weigh 80,000 people, where I watched a man get wooden skewers smacked into the scalp of his head. And then yesterday I was watching a musical in Nottingham. But it was good. Yeah, very good.
I
Just
can't say my week's been exciting, but since we last did this recording, a new Star Wars show has started, so that's all I need in my life.
yeah. Are you up to date on that? Because I've not actually watched a single episode yet.
I've not watched today's episode because of
Mm.
work, which why? But I did watch the first two straight as soon as I woke up last weekend. Phenomenal. There's my first one. Do you know, actually, I say there's my first one. I said that last week that I was going to save it. Didn't say phenomenal all episode.
That's it. You have to catch up this week. Just
Yeah.
stick as many in as possible. Before we actually get started, I wanted to quickly ask about Ahsoka because I'm just curious because I've never watched any of the Rebel stuff. Do you need to?
I think it's probably the least accessible, but it's the most watched. So I don't understand. Like Disney announced it was the most watched Disney show in a long while. So maybe it is accessible, but like for me, watching the first episode was like, surely you need to know about this and surely you need to know about that. But it's still really good. I think you just need a little bit of cursory knowledge beforehand.
Maybe.
It's got a lot of samurai influence, definitely.
So I just need to read up on some shit before I get started then.
I'll send you a video, like an 8 minute catch up video. It's fine.
So that'll do me.
Or just spend 5 minutes on shift with me, and you'll have known everything.
Yeah, that's very true. If there's one thing you can talk about, it's Star Wars, which is why it's surprising we haven't done a Star Wars episode yet.
Gotta wait.
Um,
Gotta wait to make it big.
yeah, we'll save that for a special occasion.
First 8 hour episode.
But yeah, this week we're trying something different. I'm not quite sure the rules myself, so I'm going to pass to Nathan in a second. But we are going to be covering the Harry Potter franchise. Before you explain the rules, then I just wanted to touch on Harry Potter with you. Like, are you a big fan? Have you grown up with them? Obviously, it's you were growing up as they were being released. Were you
Yes.
a big fan of the franchise?
That I remember in English class in my first school being like, we're going to read a new book. It was Harry Potter. I'm like, oh shit. And it was like nothing. It was just like it was nothing. But obviously, it grew into this massive. I grew up reading the books. I loved the books. Not as big of a fan of the books now, because I think my reading taste has grown. I say that I only read Star Wars books, but yeah, definitely grew up with the books and loved the books. Like the movies. Originally, really liked the movies. Was a massive fan, but as I think I've said to you and anybody that will ever ask me about Harry Potter, every single girlfriend, partner, fiance, both of them, whatever, has been a massive Harry Potter fan. So it's like in every new relationship, it's like, oh, we've not watched Harry Potter together. I'm like, God, here we go again. And oh, we've not been to Harry Potter Studios together, and I was like, oh, here we go again. So it has kind of dulled it. I do still really like it. I do still have a massive love for it. But you know, when you've seen something that, do you know, like if you was forced to watch Back to the Future rather than the amount of times you watch Back to the Future because you love it, that's how I feel. So I do really like it, and I do have a lot of love for it. But then it's like, oh, here we go again. Here we
Yeah,
go again. So
yeah, I get that. I as a kid, I was a huge fan. Like I think I started reading the books when I was about maybe 7. And I must have read the Harry Potter series about 8 times over as a like a young child. Because I think the last one came out in like 2007, the last book. So I read all of them before I was even 12 years old, and I just read them over and over and over. I haven't really gone back and reread them all in a very long time.
Yeah.
Funny
Well,
enough, I've actually earlier this year I actually read the first two just to see what it was like, and I'm similar to you. My tastes have changed a lot, and it felt very rushed now. Whereas a kid, I thought it was the best thing in the world.
well,
Whereas
Grace goes through these periods where she'll be like, I want to read Harry Potter, but she won't read them, so she'll get the audiobooks. So we'll get in the car to go somewhere, and then obviously a phone will just connect, and you'll just hear like Hagrid went down to the, and it's like, oh, here we go again. But then she'll finish them, and then she'll go, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to read them again. Well, listen to them again. It's like, oh, but she'll yeah, if it's on, she'll watch it. So it's very much just like oh, here we go, Harry Potter.
yeah, Ellen is a big fan of Harry Potter as well. We bought one of the Trivial Pursuit book games last year, but like the Harry Potter theme one. And I used to consider myself as a kid, I thought I knew a lot about Harry Potter, like because I read it. Over the years, I've forgotten so much. So I was still confident though going in and we play it, and she fucking wiped the floor with me. She knows everything, and I don't know. I don't understand it.
On the flip side, Grace is very much a massive fan, and I'm like, oh, I've got a bit of a cursory knowledge, and I came out on top, and that was like the best feeling. Like, I thought you was a fan.
Yeah, I don't think Ellen would ever live that down if I came out on top now because she seems to know everything. Like you could ask one of the questions was like, who said this in the fourth minute of Half-Blood Prince? She'll know. I don't understand it. I don't get it, but fair play to. I haven't watched the films proper, like many of them in a long time. I
It's good
actually think I've
talking
only
about
seen the
it,
last one a couple of times.
really.
Yeah, and I loved
See,
them.
I remember watching the last two at the cinema. I remember going to getting the last book at a midnight showing. I think I've seen them all. I think I watched the first one that my grandma took me when I was young. So I really wanted to watch Toy Story and went to watch Harry Potter instead. I remember that very vividly. But yeah, I mean, I've seen them all multiple times, and I do still enjoy them when they're on. But you know, if it's like, can we watch this, or do you want to watch something new? I'm like, I know we're going to end up watching Harry Potter, so just put it on.
Fair enough. Well, we might as well get started now. Then I'm gonna
Yeah.
hand over to you to explain what's going on because, like I said, I'm still not quite sure. I don't think so. Hopefully, you do an excellent job explaining now. So take it away.
Okay. Well, if you've been paying attention to the social medias, this episode and the intro of this episode, we've retitled this one the CineMatch Battle Royale. So it's a new concept that we're going to do. So basically, we're taking a full series, so in this case, Harry Potter, and we're going to progressively go through each of the movies. So we'll start with the first one, talk about the first one for a little bit, and then once we moved on to the second one and start talking about that, we'll start debating if it's better or worse than the first one, and then if that ranks higher or lower, we then move on to the third one. Where does that rank until we've got a definitive CineMatch Harry Potter ranking? I think we've got similar tastes on some of the movies from talking in the past, but a lot of them are probably not. So maybe a little bit argumentative because we can't move on until we've decided the placement. So I don't know if you've got to be anywhere in an hour, but
Maybe.
this might take a while.
So we pushed it
So
back to half six. It's fine.
that's fine. We've got plenty of time to argue with each other. Not that we ever do.
No, not at all.
Until we've got a definitive number one Harry Potter film. And hopefully, if this one's fallen a success, we can do this with more. I'm not doing it with Marvel, mate. we're
No,
not going back.
Christ.
We're not going back to that pot. But stuff like we can do this stuff like in future, like Quentin Tarantino movies or Scorsese movies and stuff like that. But first, we'll start off with Harry Potter. So, do you want to get jump straight into the battle royale? I was
Yes, sounds good to
me
me.
not a wrestling or fighting person for what's the only name I can think of this. And battle royale, you might think comes from Fortnite, but I actually thought the battle royale movie. So
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, it is a battle royale, the match type in wrestling, so that's the first thing I thought of.
that's
But
all right. That's all right then. I got
but,
close enough.
but yeah, we can
i
get started.
just to clarify, this is the 8 Harry Potter movies. We aren't including the what they call Fantastic
Fantastic
Beasts movies.
Beasts.
That memorable. We can't even remember the name, but we can talk about them in a little bonus bit after if you really want to. Which Grindelwald do you prefer? But yeah, no categories here, just plain old chatting about the movie. So if we start with the first Harry Potter movie, how do you feel about the first Harry Potter movie, the original, the Philosopher's slash Sorcerer's Stone, depending if you watch the right version or the American version.
Yeah, that's probably, I don't know if this is controversial, but that's probably still one of my favorites. I don't know if
Really,
there's a nostalgia about it, or I don't know why, but it reminds me of like Christmas. I think even though there's only like
it's a
one
Christmas.
Christmas
Yeah, it's a Christmas
theme,
movie, isn't it?
it honestly it feels Christmas to me, and it feels like it's one of those films where when the weather's horrific outside, you sit in with a blanket or a duvet on the sofa and you just watch that on like a Sunday afternoon. And that's one I have no trouble revisiting. As the series went along, I've rewatched them less and less, but this one it feels like one of the most rewatchable to me. And I don't know if like the book, I don't know if it's one of the shortest. Obviously, the book is, and I don't know if the film runtime correlates that. I'd have to look at how each one.
It's actually a pretty long film for the first, like considering the first book's the shortest one. It is a pretty long film because every time I watch it, I'm like, oh, we're near the end. Oh no, no, we're not.
Yeah, I thought that about the second one as well, but the first one, once you get past all the introduction bit and you actually get to Hogwarts, I think it's just really good. I love it so much. It's very different to the book, but that doesn't bother me. Whereas some of the changes they make in some of them further on, it bothers me the changes they make. Whereas this one, it doesn't, and I love it.
It does feel like a nicer adaptation. It's got that like really like that fantastical feeling about it. It does, like you said, it does feel magical. It's like something. It feels new, even though it's been kind of done before. But it's got that Home Alone type, like fantastical feeling about it, like a bit mischievous and a bit, but also fun and innocent at the heart of it. And that's why I still really like the first one. I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's too giddy and too childish, but I still really like the first one. It's just got an innocence about it that you lose obviously as they grow up, but it has got that like massive childlike feeling to it. What do you think? How do you rate we'll say the main cast in Harry, Ron, and Hermione? How do you rate their performances as you've gone back and look at them?
Oh well, they're obviously not great. I think is it Hermione as well that you can literally see her mouthing
What?
other
Yeah,
people's lines and stuff as she's walking. They're obviously not great, but that's to be expected. We are young they were. I think what helps is that they're surrounded by an incredible cast. Like everyone else is fucking awesome. And I I don't know how you feel on this. I don't know how many people feel, but I think Richard Harris was the perfect Dumbledore, and I feel like they lost a little bit when he sadly passed. Like he was wonderful in that role, and obviously
yeah.
no disrespect to Michael Gambon, but I don't think it was half as good as Richard Harris, who is when you read Harry Potter, that's the Dumbledore I imagine, not the one that we eventually get. So I think being surrounded by people like that, it works much better for me.
He's got like a gentle softness to him that Michael Gambon clearly sorely misses
Yeah.
with his anger, constant anger. But it would have been interesting to see him as Dumbledore later on down the line. It's a shame we never got to see it. We also got like Robbie Coltrane, and of course, playing Snape is Alan Rickman, who like have all the performances. That is going to be the one he's remembered for a very good reason. He's fantastic in those films. Fantastic. He's fantastic. And you got Professor McGonagall with Maggie Smith, and just the entire cast is great. But in the original trio, yeah, they're young, but I actually think the first film is probably some of the better acting. Because they are children, they're acting like children, obviously, but they've got obviously Hermione's overly British in the first one, like she's the most British person I've ever seen with that voice. Ron's perfect from the beginning, and obviously Harry takes a bit of work, but like he's not unlikable, he's not like grating. I really enjoyed it. So obviously they grow into much better actors, debatably in some of the films. What kind of like do you have any kind of strong memories of you? It's like I said, my grandma took me to watch the first film. What kind of strong memories do you have attached to this one?
This one is not the first film I ever went to watch at the cinema, but it is one of the very first. Like, I don't even remember watching it. I just remember leaving. I remember coming out with my mum and my brother, and I was like maybe 4 or something like that. And I just remember being like, well, I don't know what the hell just happened, but it was fantastic. Like, I think
I had a reaction like that recently, but instead of I don't know what the hell happened, it was fantastic. I don't know what the hell happened. That was the worst film I've ever seen. Have you ever seen a film called The Flash?
Do you know, as soon as you said I had something like that recently, I was like, here we fucking go. Terrible. The Flash is fine. I
Fine.
think the more I think about it, the less I like it, but it's fine. But
Right.
yeah, I think as well, it's hard to really think about that first movie now because like in the sense of watching it for the first time because it feels like those characters are just there forever now.
Yeah.
All of them in that first movie, especially, it was just the most perfect casting. Like I don't know how you get every single person right in that film, but they did. Which is in why the decision to remake a TV series this shortly after is very interesting because I don't think there's going to be many people that can live up to
Yeah,
some of those
it's not.
guys.
It wouldn't be the same, and it's almost the Harry Potter franchise from the first one. As soon as the first one released, you knew it was going to be something special, and it's something obviously quintessentially British, but it's one of those like Back to the Future or Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or Indiana Jones where you can't remake them. I don't think they're perfect trilogy. Well, not trilogies. They're perfect series. You shouldn't really remake them from scratch. Do your own thing or something. But yeah, you shouldn't really. And the Fast and Furious, obviously, you shouldn't really remake them. Just do your own thing. Do something different. Just kind of leave them be because you can't touch them. They're
Yeah,
untouchable.
yeah, I agree, and it feels like you said, it does feel like just quintessentially English. Like the film, it's one of like not to sound like too over the top, but it feels like it's one of like this country's like biggest creations in terms of like the way it hit the zeitgeist and how it took over culture, and it's still to this day, despite the fact it ended over a decade ago, it's still everywhere. Like even when you go to like America and stuff, the merch is still in all the shops. It's
But you go to
crazy.
places like you go to London and you can go in a lot of there's like shops dedicated to Harry Potter still, like pop-up shops that aren't licensed Harry Potter, but it's like clearly this is Harry Potter. York shops all over the place in York, just because the streets somewhat look like Diagon Alley. The studio tours still sell out. People come to UK to look at go to the castles just where one scene shot. It's madness. And it all sprouted from that movie.
Yeah, and
Um,
you've still got the trolley coming out of the wall at King's Cross. They've actually got
It's
that there now as
always
well, haven't
packed. It's always packed. I don't get it. It's a plastic trolley on a wall, guys. I don't get it. But
they? But
it,
I don't know if I mean, with how popular the books were, I feel like even if the first film was a disappointment, they'd have made the rest of the series anyway. But I think with how good that first film was, it really got the franchise off to an incredible start. So I don't think it would have been half as successful as it was if it wasn't for how well they did in that first movie with the casting, the performances, and just the entire thing, really.
yeah, agreed. So we haven't got a anything to rank it up against. So Harry Potter currently ranks baseline. So do you want to move on to Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets?
Absolutely.
How do you feel about that one?
Again, I think this one's quite a controversial one. I think it depending who you ask, it's either one of their favorites or one of their least. I know Eleanor's not a big fan of this one, but I love it. I really like this one. I think even though it's only the second one and they're still young, I think the elements of horror that they bring in it really works for me, and it's probably one of the most rewatchable as a kid. Like I can almost quote that full film now.
How about the first one?
No, I said it's one of the most rewatchable.
Okay.
But this one I think this one actually is the one I've watched the most, which
Yeah.
is interesting because it's not necessarily my favorite, but
Okay. Well,
it's
I know where we're.
probably the one I've watched the most. And yeah, it's I think the cast, the kids, I think get a little better. I think everyone else, because it's a world we're settled in now, we don't take too long to get back into things, which obviously helps from a
Always good for a
storyline
sequel. Yeah.
standpoint. But also, I think Kenneth Branagh as Gilderoy Lockhart is absolutely sensational. Like even now, that stuff kills me. He's so good in that role.
That's
And
good.
I think like the Chamber of Secrets is just an interesting concept, like the way they did that, and they delved into like the Hogwarts founders, the four founders and stuff, and just it took everything about the first one, but it wasn't quite as mature as the series went, but it gave a hint of what was to come. It was definitely darker, And yeah, I really liked it.
Yeah, I think in terms of the second one, obviously these all the films got an edge because they're based off of source material. But I think the second one built off of a visual style off the first one. That first one was, like I said, charming and magical and a little bit playful. And this one kind of went, right, well, you've seen how fun being a wizard can be. Well, now it's going to get a bit darker. And they managed to take it all and still weave in these dark parts, like, with the polyjuice potion and still having fun with that, but having it like showing like a bit of a darker effect to it. Just going to keep saying darker until the message just hit home. Just like when I was saying spiritual the other week. Uh,
Yeah,
um, but having like people petrified and the spiders in the Forbidden Forest, and I mean, you had a tiny bit of horror in the first one, but it was mainly at the end and in the Forbidden Forest. But this one, like you say, it really amped it up, and I mean, not as much as the third one did it, but it really it felt like. Whereas the third one felt a bit more like, okay, right now we're adults or teenagers. This one still felt like that kind of goosebumps type kiddie horror it's okay for you to let your 8 or 9 year old nephew or niece to watch or your kids, but not that bad that it's still not entertaining for them and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I really like what they managed to do with the world we already had, like you said, and not just kind of doing the same thing again with the benefits of the books, but turning it into something a bit more more of a straight up horror adventure in the most kiddie way possible, obviously. And yeah, Gilderoy Lockhart, whoever decided, like I've seen him in, Dunkirk and the Poirot movies and everything. He's like a completely different person. He's fantastic. I don't say fantastic a lot, but he is fantastic. And yeah, that's a performance that I'm shocked that he never really came back in any of the later movies because it's a massive and memorable performance. Same with you know, Dobby, and you get more of the Malfoy kind of stuff. Um, yeah, the second one for me, I was old enough to go on my own by the time the second one came out. I remember going with some friends, and it was kind of you kind of felt like, oh well, now I'm a bit more adult, I can take this, and it did. I did really enjoy it. I probably haven't watched it as much as the first one because it doesn't feel like a Christmas movie like the first one does. This one just feels like we're just going to watch the second one because the first one, we watched the first one, so we're going to start watching them. But I probably haven't watched this one as much as the others, shockingly enough. Um, but yeah, still really, really like the second one.
I think the second one to me feels more like a Halloween movie.
Third one to me feels like a Halloween movie.
I mean, yeah, because there's obviously the pumpkin stuff at the end as well.
Yeah.
I think after that, none of them really feel seasonal.
No.
Those first few, they do feel like very like there is a certain time of year that you should watch them. But yeah, the stuff with Tom Riddle and that reveal was great. I think all the ways they got around people seeing the basilisk was really well done and very smart. Including like the cat with the water, calling through the camera, Justin Vince Fletcher looking at it through Nearly Headless Nick. Like it's all really clever. Like it's just really well done. One thing I don't like is it was the first hint of like, I mean, it was obvious anyway where the series was going, but it was like the hint that it's all about like Harry's like the chosen one, like where he could all of a sudden just hear like speak snake, so it meant that he could talk to the fucking creature and stuff. Like I'm very much against that whole chosen one trope. I think it's one of the laziest in any movie. Like where it's
Yeah,
just
as a
this
Star
one
Wars fan,
person
I
can do
agree.
everything. Huh?
As a Star Wars fan, I have to agree.
No, I think Star Wars did a nice twist on it. We were having the chosen one turn to the dark
Yeah,
side, and then like whereas this where it's like he's the guy that has to save the day and he never wavers from that. It's just a bit dull for me. And there's just
yeah.
certain plot armor surrounding the character where it's like, oh, we know nothing's ever going to happen to this character because of it. And I feel like the whole stuff with the parcel mouth, um, it was like
Parcel
the
tongue.
first.
This is why I didn't win the trivia game. It's parcel tongue, not parcel mouth.
Is it?
Yeah,
Oh well, there you go. That's why I didn't fucking win. I'm sure you can say parcel mouth as well.
I think parcel math is what they do when they're teenagers.
I am convinced you could say parcel mouth, and I hope you get slated by the people that called you out for the Mariah Carey mistake last time.
Yeah,
I hope
probably.
next week you're sat on this podcast apologising to me because I am sure parcel mouth's a thing. But I forgot what I was saying. Oh, the tokens of snakes. Yeah. I didn't like that stuff, but I think the horror stuff was really well done. Like even now, that whole stuff with the spiders, it grosses me out. Like
The spider stuff's really good, and knowing a lot of the effects in the second, well, all of them really. But knowing a lot of the first and the second movie was done a lot practical rather than CG, makes me love it even more because I assume you've been to Harry Potter Studios, like
yeah.
seeing all the props and the practical effects from. You see them mostly from the first two movies, and the spider stuff with Aragog and everything was. Is it Aragog or is that Lord of the Rings?
It is
It is
Aragog.
Yeah. I really creepy to look at, and knowing I can see it in person, it's just £50 a ticket, it would fucking rip off. But is is really really good. I love all the practical effects in those movies.
I think it's interesting though how they kind of give away. If you're watching closely enough, they give away that Lucius Malfoy gives Ginny the book. Like you literally see him put it in
Yeah,
there, which is
there's a
quite
yeah,
interesting.
there's a lot of good stuff in there, and yeah, but the second one does have one of my favorite subplots in all of the films, and that is Ron's broken wand, and just leading to some fucking funny as fuck.
But
Um,
even that because that obviously that's reminding me of the stuff when Malfoy calls Hermione a mudblood, and you first get that introduction to like discrimination in the Wizarding World. I think it's really well done, and even for kids at that age, it's quite eye opening. So I think when you take that into account, I just think it's a really good movie. I do.
mhm.
I enjoy it a lot, and I think I'd put it.
So would you? Yeah, let's get into, so we're getting into
I'm
the
already
first.
stuck. I'm already stuck.
So we're getting into the first. We're getting into the first round of fighting. So now we've talked about the first one. We've talked about the second one. Decision time, Cal. And this is literally the first hurdle. So
Yeah,
you getting stressed out about it is not a good sign.
I know these two
We've
though.
got we've
There's
only got 45 minutes left to film. Uh, do you rank the Chamber of Secrets higher or lower than the Philosopher's slash Sorcerer's Stone? Well, we're going to say for the rest of the episode, I'm going to say Philosophers because that is the correct way.
oh, I'm saying higher.
Higher? Why?
I just think because everything they set up in the first one, it takes all of the world we were introduced to, it takes it to another level. And I think the performances are better in the second one. I think the villain is better in the second one. I think the Chamber of Secrets as a concept is better than like the Philosopher's Stone and going down through those little that those like
Trials.
getting through the trials. I think the Chamber of Secrets is just cooler. I think having Voldemort's memory take over Ginny Weasley was really well done. I think Gilderoy Lockhart was a better defense against the dark arts teacher than Quirrell because he wasn't. I mean, he was kind of evil, but he was funny when he did it.
Yeah, he did have a face stuck to the back of his head, like
Yeah,
malignant.
but yeah, I think, and I also think the horror stuff worked really well. The first one, I think it just took a little bit too much time to actually get into things. Like, I don't think you're even at. How long is it to you at Hogwarts? Like 40 minutes?
It's not that long. It's really not that long. It doesn't take that long at all. And this is where we're going to have a first disagreement at the first hurdle. Because I would say that Chamber of Secrets just underneath Philosopher's Stone, because there's something about the first film, like I've repeatedly said, it's just got that really lovely magical feeling. And not only are you introduced to Harry and his world, and obviously the way he's been brought up, but it's the first time you're having your eyes open to magic. And like I say, in the first films, it was all practical. So a lot of that stuff was done. So seeing Diagon Alley for the first time, seeing Hogwarts for the first time in the train and platform 9 3/4, and then everything as the lessons, the first time they're learning magic with Wingardium Leviosa, the first Quidditch match, and all that. And I like the trials at the end, and I think the end's really creepy when he's got his hands on his face and his face is crumbling away. I had nightmares like about that for years as a kid. That's why I would. I like the second one, and I do like everything you've said about it. But I just think it because it's just a continuation. The magical aspect of it, the introductory and the fun aspect of the first one edges it out. And this is where we're now got to decide where we're going to place
So the thing is,
it. Here's the thing.
I was quite torn on which one was going to go first. So I'm not that upset with putting the first one above the second because, like you said, that shot of Hogwarts when they're on the lake, it's one of the most glorious things I've ever seen. And the first one, more so the book than the film, but the film as well, it's what made me want to be a writer. It was like as a kid, I wanted to like write something like that. I wanted to create stuff like that. I mean, it's not really worked out. I'm doing more sports and non-fiction stuff now,
You're
but
talking about Harry Potter right this second. It's fine.
yeah. But it's I think I prefer the second one, but for what you said about the first and the fact it started all, I'm not too upset with it going above it. Although it's interesting to say because it's a continuation, you have to put the first above it. Does that mean the first is good is number one? Because you could call every single one a
Oh,
continuation.
let's not play. Let's not ruin the whole concept with one technicality. No,
No,
it's just like the second one doesn't do enough to be different. I don't think it changes it a little bit by adding that little bit of dark. Like you can't. I know we're obviously going to talk about it, but you look at what comes later. They really change it with each one. Whereas this one just these two feel more connected. Like these, I always say the first and the second one feel like a very different series to the rest of them. This when we start talking about Prison of Azkaban, that's when the tone shifts massively.
I
But
suppose though that's Christopher Columbus directing the first two, didn't he? And then he left, and
yeah,
he's obviously he's known for that sort of magic that he brings to movies like Home Alone and stuff. And the soundtrack in the first two is very, very similar to Home Alone.
no, yeah,
Whereas
let's give a shout out to John Williams.
yeah,
We'll go.
once Columbus leaves, it does change drastically. So that's probably a large reason for that, I think.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'm fine with the first one going above.
that's fine. I'll take the win.
I'm not going to be
Cheers.
that generous going forward, though.
Well, now we're going to talk about the one that changed the series the most. It almost went from like a nice kiddie franchise full of magic and whimsy to almost gothic, with a very different direction style and different aesthetic and design choices throughout. We ditched the uniforms when the kids were at school. So obviously we're talking about the third one, Prisoner of Azkaban, which I am a former emo, so Prisoner of Azkaban. I say former emo, it's still in there at heart. I still listen to My Chemical Romance on the daily, but it has a massive place in my heart. The third one, absolutely loved it. But one that changed the most from the books.
Yeah, yeah, it absolutely did. I like the third one a lot. I think the introduction of Sirius Black was fucking genius, and it was like even as a kid watching that movie, like the beginning of it, and as it builds through, it paints him as this like mythic creature. When they talk about Sirius Black, and everyone's like, "Hush!" I think it's the most creative and like effective way to ever introduce a character. Like I saw something once online, and it was like saying the best characters in anything are the ones that people talk about like for ages, like oh, so and so's coming, so's coming, and then they eventually show up in the final third, and it's like this big reveal, and you've got to
Yeah,
land it. You've got to land it at that point, and I think Gary Oldman is fucking on another level.
yeah,
I love the third one, but I think that massive change. It's almost like the first couple were like Willow, and then once you got to the third one, it was like Lord of the Rings. Like that was like how the drastic turn in like the fantasy and
Oh,
like
you've said that. I hate Willow. Hate it. Why would you say that to me? But
that's your
yeah,
guy George
I get
Lucas,
what
isn't it?
it is, and it's not his finest work. He's no Howard the Duck, but it's no. But I get what you're saying, and the third one changed it up massively. The kids have obviously grown up as well. Like in the first and the second one, they look and act like kids. In the third one, they are not kids. They almost aged 5 years. You know, with their early 2000s floppy haircuts and the top shop jumpers and and all that kind of all that business. But yeah, like with Sirius Black all the way through the movie, like you say, it's a looming threat, and having him not actually be present and having him be obviously they changed it for the film from the books, but be just a shadow in the clouds that Harry's just scared of because he's heard about this omen. And who is it that plays the divination teacher? Emma Thompson.
Yeah.
Like that amazing performance where she's talking about the omen and all that kind of stuff. All these things, nothing. The claw marks, you've not actually seen them, and then when you do, everything's just flipped on its head almost immediately. I think it takes 10, 15 minutes from actually physically those characters meeting for him to be, oh no, I'm not the bad guy. And then the twist of obviously Ron's rat, whose name was
Scabbers.
Wormtail, yeah, um, Scabbers, yeah, being actually connected to it all and being it, then being another Voldemort connection. It was better, much better twist than I expected. And of course, I'd already read the books. I did already know, but in the movie, they played it so well, and with all the reveals and all the action and everything, it just really, really well done. As well as one of the best creature designs of all time with the Dementors, that bloody all the silk all over their face and everything. Fantastic. Pulling another one out. Fantastic. Phenomenal. But yeah, the third film feels like a just completely different beast, and it's got so much going for it as well. And like, I think if it weren't, if they didn't get a different, if they kept Christopher Columbus, the rest of the films wouldn't have changed. I feel like they needed this one to be a turning point because this one really speaks to what the rest of the franchise become. It almost forced it into an adult series all of a sudden because as we get on, the themes get more and more adult, and you needed this kind of like whiplash turn from Chamber of Secrets to Prisoner of Azkaban to really do it. And his direction style of showing the seasons as they change, like with the Whomping Willow transitions and all of that, really, really helped that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things most affects about the series as a whole. That for people like you and I who absolutely aren't the same generation, not even close,
Cheers.
but we both kind of grew up with the Harry Potter series, as in it aged with us.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, by the time the book series finished, I was still only 12, so it's not like 11, sorry. So it's not like that I aged with that. But the movies, on the other hand, it was like I aged with them. That's right, I'm much younger than you.
Thanks.
But
It's my weekly reminder.
yeah, the Dementor design, I'm not afraid to admit, I probably had about 11 nightmares about that shit when I was a kid. And it's interesting because I just compared this one to like when the series went into more of like a Lord of the Rings direction, where because they do look very similar to Sauron's night. I think what they call the Night Riders. Is that right?
Night Rider. I don't think the Night Riders.
Or is that guy from Marvel in it? Or is that Ghost Rider?
Ghost Rider. Night Rider's an
That's
80s.
David Hasselhoff in it. David Hasselhoff just going around looking for a ring. He's chasing
Is
Frodo
it
down.
Nazgul? Nazgul? That sounds
Can't
about right.
remember. But they look like
Lord of the
the
Ring nerds.
Dementors. So
Yeah.
that's that. That would have been interesting if David Hasselhoff was chasing Frodo in his car. He'd caught him immediately. But no,
David,
the Dementors looked scary as hell, but it was so good.
yeah, David Thewlis as well as Professor Lupin, really, really good.
Yeah, Lupin was a standout, I think, throughout the entire series from that point on. I think he was perfectly cast.
Yeah, he plays it really well as well with that again with a softness, but all the way through. You again, if you've read the books, you know, but even knowing that, you can see the torture in him on a day-to-day basis. The bit where they do the ridiculous spells and to turn something scary into something not scary, and he stands in front of Harry because he can see a Dementor, and it's just the moon, and like the shot of his face. And when I was editing the videos, that scene came up, and I was like, oh, God, how good that scene is! Just a really, really small scene, and of course you got the bit at the end with the introduction of Expecto Patronum, which is as nerdy as it sounds, that is a bit. If we was doing categories, that would be a fist pump moment in the franchise, because it is such a good moment, especially when you have that heartbreak of him thinking, "Oh, I saw my dad," and it wasn't; it was him, and it was that kind of fulfilling moment. But how do you feel about the most controversial thing about the Prisoner of Azkaban and with the time turner?
I was going to get to that actually because I think while it was a clever idea, I think the introduction of something like that it ultimately leaves so many issues going forward from this point on. If there's
Yeah,
such things as time turners, why would no one ever think to save Sirius Black or Cedric Diggory when you find out the portkey? You're like, not to step on the favorite films, but there's so many issues that happen later on where if these things existed, why is no one thinking to use them to prevent these sort of tragedies? Like, I think time travel has to be done right if it's going to be done.
great.
Back to the Future nails it,
Yeah,
but like it's a clever idea, and it's interesting that that's what leads to like the way the stories like come together with Harry thinking it's his dad, but it's not. Um,
yeah, that
but
bit's
yeah,
good. And like the like being distracted because they threw a stone, and then like it is all cyclical.
yeah, the one coming through the window, it's quite clever, like how they do it. Because at first you watch it and you just don't really know what the fuck's going on, like what's going on here. But
I think
then,
that I think the time turner kind of highlights a bigger problem is when you start using magic to do just plot points whenever you want. It's kind of like so. At one point, they're saying Sirius has been through the castle, and Sirius has been and he slashed the fat lady's portrait. Can't say fat lady anymore. Fat lady's portrait. And it's like, well, all those other paintings can walk and talk and see things. Why wouldn't they not just say where he went?
yeah, but there's a
But
few
it's
plot holes. Like
it's magic
if
in it.
Peter like this, I've seen it so many times online. But like people say, if Peter Pettigrew was in Ron Weasley's bed every single night on that Marauder's map, why are Fred and George not saying anything? Like because they've had that map for years at this point, they
Just
wouldn't have seen it.
the support his brothers. If they look, if they think that that's what their brother wants, then I mean, as a kid, maybe they should have said something to the parents. Maybe they're enablers.
Yeah,
Pranking's one thing, but allowing paedophilia is another.
you're like surely you'd be asking who the hell is Peter Pettigrew at that point. I do think though that scene in the book especially, but in the movie when Harry's when he hears about Peter Pettigrew and how he was murdered by Sirius, and then he sees him on the Rose map. It's really clever, like, and it's really eerie at that point, and I think it's so well done. Do you think she always had that twist planned? That Scabbers was always going to be revealed as Peter Pettigrew?
I doubt it. I
Yeah,
think you kind of have a first book and you hope it's successful, and then when it is, you can kind of start building off of it. But I think it's things like that where you go, "Oh, I'm going to build this in. I'll work it out later." Like with the time turner, you're never going to use it again. That would have been really handy in the final fight. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
But it's just. I think each book at a point you kind of. I think she probably wanted each book to stand alone until all of a sudden it can't. But yeah, how so? We've got currently the Philosopher's Stone at number one and Chamber of Secrets at number two. So would you say Prisoner of Azkaban you would rank higher or lower than the Philosopher's Stone, which is currently at number one?
think, and this is
You did like a
surprising
proper eye
because
roll, like, oh no.
it's surprising because this is obviously the only one without Voldemort in any capacity, so it had to be impressive to be successful without the main villain. But I actually do think I'd rank this at number one right now. I think I put this above Philosopher's Stone.
I'd love to argue with you, but I can't. I fully 100% agree. It's that moment of growing up, and the reason why I like you'll say, well, what about the first one, having introducing all the magic and all this that kind, or this one reintroduced it, kind of reset, and like I said, give you that whiplash of okay, this is the tone now. We're grown up, and also it has while the second one has the Ron's broken wand with the amazing, backfiring and throwing up slugs, and the first one has the initial magic and all of that excellent stuff. The third one has Hermione punching Draco right in the face, and if that's not one of the best things you ever need to see, so yeah, that's why it would easily knocks it above. Also, really love the werewolf design on Lupin, especially when he changes. It really gives that old school horror vibes, and um, I love that it's not a traditional werewolf because obviously at the time Twilight was getting big as well. It's not a traditional werewolf. It's like this really scrawny, skinny thing. No, Dan, we're not talking about you. It's fantastic. It's an amazing design. I really, really love it. But yeah, I would agree that Prisoner of Azkaban is also would rank higher than the Philosopher's Stone, just because it really does just change things up for the better. You also got Buckbeak. Who didn't want a Buckbeak?
Yeah, that was cool. And I will say about Lupin, the transformation looks painful, which I think is important.
Yeah,
It was very much out of. It
American Werewolf.
felt very similar to the American Werewolf in London, like the
Yeah,
transformation. It felt like that's nothing anyone ever wants to go through, and I think that's important. And it was necessary for the character that it needed to look like this isn't fun. This isn't just like transforming into a wolf whenever you feel like it and getting by. Like obviously in Twilight, that Jacob just jumps about and he's just cutting shapes as a wolf.
just
Whereas
jumps
this,
back. I can honestly say I've never watched Twilight, and if you make me watch it for this podcast, I'll hate you forever.
I've watched every single one, including the last one at the cinema, and I've got no shame.
I've seen clips of there's one clip going around recently of her screaming at Jacob after naming a child after something. I don't know.
Yeah. It's weird. It's weird.
It's
That's
weird.
the last one. It's a
Yeah, I
series
also
best left forgotten, I think. Um,
happily
one
happily. I
final
also
note on
I was
Prisoner
going to
of
do a final
Azkaban.
note as well, so I'll let you do a final note. Yeah, you do a final note.
I want to tell you, I've got no shame of admitting, as a kid, me and my friends, there was a field right next to my house.
Oh, where's this story going?
No, we used to get we used to play like wizards and stuff. So we get
Stop doing
sticks,
this.
yeah.
Stop doing this.
But we get
So you was in a field with your mates doing this.
with
Playing with your
sticks.
wands. Playing with your wands, yeah.
Yeah, we had sticks in doing that. But I can't tell you how many times I shouted the words "Expecto Patronum" at the top of my voice as like a 10-year-old kid. Like I've got no shame in admitting that. It was such a fun. That's probably one of the biggest takeaways in any movies. Like it's such an awesome moment, that scene on the lake when he saves Sirius.
Yeah, me and Grace went to a Forbidden Forest walk in Chester, I think it is, last Christmas, and it's like you go through the forest, it's all lit up and it's got decorations and stuff. But the ending of it is this big like light show where he does the Expecto Patronum, and it all lights up and you can see all of the Dementors flying by, and that was cool. As well as like there's this platform you can walk up to and shout it, and you get your own Patronus. And there's some people like me who's like, oh, whatever, I don't want to do it. And there's other people that will proper go in for it, like kids and adults as well, proper
I'd
go.
have done it. I'd have been straight up.
You got your robe on, you got your wand in hand, shaking it about like you did in
Yeah,
that field.
yeah.
What I
I'd
wanted
bring
to
the
say
boys
was,
back. We'd all get ones out.
what I wanted to say was, the Prisoner of Azkaban was the first time you kind of went, oh right, okay, to Snape, and not seeing him as just the bad guy. Like I think it's the most telling. Like obviously looking back after everything that happens, it's the most telling scene when he stands in front of the gang and puts his arms out and puts himself in harm's way, and it really betrays the character that you've seen all the way up until this point, who really clearly hated him. And that speaks to everything we learn about him. And I think that is such a solid scene to include, that if obviously a plot point later on that comes back, if that hadn't been built in, it wouldn't have felt as genuine later on. And I think that's the first moment where you kind of go, right, it was always there.
Yeah.
So yeah. So this is the one I think we might be agreeing on some stuff. We might be able to gush on a little bit more with. It's got a fucking dragon in it. So Goblet of Fire, automatically one of my favorite films. Not just Harry Potter films. I love it. It's got a fucking giant dragon in it. What more do you need? That's
Yeah.
me. That's me. That's what I'm going to say about it.
Yeah, I've made no secret in the past to anyone that I'll talk about Harry Potter with. The Goblet of Fire is the peak for me. Whether it's the book or the film, I love everything about this movie.
Yeah.
It's so good. I think starting off,
Stop recording now.
yeah, I think starting off where it did, it was such a drastic shift. Just seeing Frank the caretaker obviously stumble across Voldemort in the old Riddle house, and just the way they just made him a cold blood. It was it was unlike anything we'd seen at that point. I think it was the first time we'd seen the killing curse.
Yeah.
And
Well,
obviously,
kind of in Chamber of Secrets, he's about to say it when he
yeah.
gives Dobby a sock. But yeah, it's the first time we see it in full.
Which is, but when you think about that, actually, can we just quickly talk about the fact that Lucius Malfoy was going to straight up fucking murder Harry in the school? in front of Dumbledore's office. Like that was the most stupid idea ever.
An adult killing a kid in a school. What? It's set in England. It's not going to happen.
But yeah, I think Goblet of Fire just it's on a different level. Like we said, then Prison of Azkaban was where the story first starts to get a bit darker. But I think Goblet of Fire, it's all in at this point. Like it's a completely different tone. I think
It's
starting with
it's
the
a weird one. Just to quick. It's a weird one, Goblet of Fire, because it's such a fun movie all up until it's fucking not.
yeah
It's such a
yeah.
it's a strange one.
I think the Quidditch World Cup would have been that's one of my biggest issues that we didn't see it.
Oh, don't.
I
That
don't know what the thought process was in not showing the Quidditch World Cup. Like I don't
yeah.
understand. That was one of the best things in that book for me was reading about the Quidditch World Cup, and I don't understand why they didn't include it. But I think the whole stuff with the Dark Mark being revealed and everything going into chaos, and it really did like spark fear. Like it felt ominous, and it was like something big is coming. And as the book went on and the movie went on, and the introduction of the Triwizard Tournament, which I just think is fucking genius. I love that so much.
Mm.
Obviously, somehow Harry ends up in it, like chosen one, all that bollocks.
I mean, somehow you watch the movie, you know what happened.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Though, like they had to find a way to get Harry in it, even though there's specific rules because it's Harry Potter. But I think in the books we've obviously already been introduced to him, but the movie is the first. This movie is the first we see of Cedric Diggory, who I think is a fucking great character. Like he is everything that most people wouldn't expect from a Hufflepuff. Like they're supposed to be like the nerds, and this guy's just like fucking coolness personified.
Well, no,
Um,
Hufflepuffs are the stoners, aren't they? Ravenclaw are the dorks. Hufflepuff are the stoners. Gryffindor are the jocks, and then Slytherins are the goths.
yeah, which is why it doesn't make sense because he feels like one of the most jockiest people in that fucking school. Everyone
He's
loves
literally
Cedric
the
Diggory.
coolest person in
Yeah,
any of the movies ever.
yeah. And I just think the way they did all the different trials, it was so fucking good. Like I said, there's fucking dragons for Christ's sake.
Dragons,
They're sick,
all you need.
absolute sick.
And it's such a good
Um,
bit as well. It's not just like, not only is it just like, right, okay, we're going to take kids and we're going to stick them in a pit with a dragon, but obviously then it goes off the rails and they go flying around the castle as well, which of course it has to. But it's such a great design on the dragon. Like I love it. I love a good dragon. But it's such a good design on the dragons as well. Like much better than that shit we get in the Deathly Hallows, but with a bang. Um, but yeah, and then with the mermaids as well, which creepy as fuck. And then obviously the maze at the end and all the creatures inside of that. It's just really well thought out. I don't know why they couldn't just say Harry. I'm sure there's probably something in there. Harry's just like, okay, well, I'm just not doing it.
yeah,
I'll just like, just lock him in a room. What's going to
there
happen?
should be something. There should be something there. Like, yeah, probably shouldn't.
But Mad Eye Moody as well.
Yeah, I was trying to wrap my brains then. I can't remember for the life of me the name of the actor.
I
He's
wish I
obviously
could.
he's a really, really obviously good actor. He's been in quite a lot, so I don't know why
I'm
I
gonna
can't
have to
remember his
Google
name.
because it's going to bug the life out of me.
Yeah, he was in Banshees of Inisherin. He was in The Edge of Tomorrow.
Unfortunately, it was also in a film we watched recently, Paddington 2.
I wasn't
Although
there. Thank God.
you didn't watch that one, was
No,
still can't find it. What's his name? What's his name? Brendan Gleeson.
that's
That's
the
it.
one. Yeah, he
Who?
just did. He did In Bruges as well with Colin
Yeah,
Farrell.
yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah.
a great actor, and he did a brilliant job as Moody slash um,
Barty
Barty
Crouch.
Crouch Jr.
Yeah.
Which I rewatched bits of The Goblet of Fire on Monday when I got back from London, and it's actually really surprising to me how blatantly obvious they make it that there's something going on with Moody, like when he's like kind of spying on Barty Crouch, or he does the tongue thing in front of him, and then
Yeah.
immediately afterwards Barty Crouch is dead. Like how is people not supposed to be incredibly suspicious about this guy? But
Yeah. I think they lean into that like kind of Hagrid level of lovability where he's clearly looking out for Harry because most people do. Most people kind of bend the rules for Harry. Like McGonagall did it in the first one by giving him a broomstick, and Hagrid's always like bending and breaking the rules for him to tell him stuff, and so does Dumbledore. I think the only one that doesn't really is Snape.
yeah,
Um, so you easily convinced that it could just be another teacher that's wants Harry to win. for whatever reason, not for the reasons we get in the end, which fuck me.
Yeah,
But it's
it's
well
really
again,
well
it's
done.
well manipulated all the way through. It's well played and well planned out all the way through. And it once you realise what's happened, you go, "Oh shit!"
Yeah, it's really well done. I think the scene when Harry goes into Dumbledore's like pensieve, I think it's called, and he's in the memories, and we see Kakarot in the courtroom, and he does the
Yeah,
big reveal when he said when he's. It's weird though because it's like it switches because he seems really upset. He's like, "I've got another. I promise." He's like, "Barty Crouch never looked." And then he has all of a sudden he's really happy and he's smirking when he's like Junior. And David Tennant, who I don't even know if he'd been Doctor Who at that point. I don't know if he was well known because he's not in very many scenes, but he's brilliant.
yeah. I imagine if it was after Doctor Who or around Doctor Who, they probably would have given him way more scenes. But
Yeah.
yeah, in the short time he's given, he is brilliant as well. But yeah, not even touched on the other schools as well. Introduction to this Hogwarts isn't the only one. There's more. I mean, France and Germany. The French obviously having the better school. Imagine going to that school.
I know. That'd be fantastic, wouldn't it? I love that. Um, yeah. How many schools? I think they've touched on there being more than that, so they're not just the only ones. But there must be.
I know there's one in Australia. There's a couple in America.
Yeah, you'd imagine so. There's so
But
it feels weird, like how much there is on the table for that universe to do, and they've not. They just haven't. Like they
yeah,
did the Fantastic Beast, which less said the better. But like there's
yeah.
so much they could have done, and it's surprising that they haven't really.
I think it also again opens up more plot holes of like also magician like wizards are a secret, but they're literally everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, it is weird.
But
Um, we haven't even touched on that last trial properly. That's another issue I had
yeah,
is the maze. Um, it gets rid of a lot of what's in the book. Like in the
yeah,
book, they've got to answer like riddles and the sphinxes and stuff like that, and then they get rid of a
yeah,
lot of that in the maze. I'm not really sure why, um,
yeah.
but it's
Probably
still
just
good. I think Crumb being, um,
possessed.
yeah, him being possessed, and when I think it's Flair's looking around, and then she just like turns the light and he's just there. It's like a fucking horror villain. It's like a jump scare.
What I've seen is like that's what I mean. It's like it's dead fun. It's a really fun movie. It starts off a bit dark, goes into quite a fun movie, and then you get to the maze, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, no,
Yeah, yeah,
we're
it's
completely
crazy.
changing the tone of this movie, like almost like a light switch, literally like a light switch. It was fucking dark, and the him being possessed, and then I like that. Like you think that right, okay, we're gonna win together, and it's gonna be that nice Harry Potter kind of ending kind of thing, and then oh, it all goes to shit,
Yeah,
and that I Can Touch You Now, his birth, his rebirth, um, his like all the Death Eaters coming, and then the fight. Watching like Harry like genuinely struggle after seeing a main character, a kid, no less. I think probably for the first time in the entire franchise, get killed outside of what's the face, the ghost girl in the second one,
Morning Metal.
Moaning Myrtle. Yeah, which I should know that because I call Grace that a lot. Um, it's
She's a
the
lucky
first
woman.
time. Yeah, it's the first time you genuinely see somebody physically killed as well, not first person, but first child, and it's like, oh fuck, this is all of a sudden it's changed, and I really like the bit where Voldemort's like, you know, there's rules to follow. First we bow and makes him bow and stuff like. It's just it straight up turns into a horror, like proper horror movie.
Yeah, and I think what's important about them killing Cedric is he was portrayed as a very competent wizard up until that point. Like I can't remember how well he did in the first challenge, but he won the second one, and he was portrayed as quite skillful. And then he was just cast. It was like
Oh,
with ease, he
fucking
was just cast aside. It was like, oh, like
gone.
these kids are out of the depth essentially.
Yeah,
And I
it
think just
shows
that. Go on.
it shows Voldemort as a real force as well.
Yeah. And I think just that bit when they first get to the graveyard and they're wondering what's going on, then you see the grave and it's got the Tom name, and you're like, oh shit. Like, oh, we fucked it here, boys. Get
Yeah,
gone. And then Cedric even like defending Harry, like he's the one that steps up and he's the one asking who they are. Like he was portrayed as such a like a competent wizard for his age that it was quite jarring to see him just cast aside like that with ease. And I think it was a real wake up call for us as the audience, because the only young wizard we'd seen come across like villains to this point is Harry, who obviously is surrounded by plot armor. So it's like, well, these guys can't be that great if they're getting bested by this kid all the time. So I think it
Yeah.
was important to see a fellow student come up against it and just get immediately fucking whacked.
I think it was important that he didn't beat him either, or he didn't wound him. He didn't even get like, it didn't really get even a hit on him. He just had to make it out and escape,
Yeah.
which I think were really important, like going on as well. Obviously, the really nice scene of all of the ghosts coming out of the wand. Um, it's the 1-2 punch of take my body back to my father, and then getting back and Cedric Diggory's dad being like, my boy, gets me every
Yeah,
time.
yeah. Like I said, I was watching bits of
Now,
it, and it did it. I teared up watching that. Although I will say about that, Cho Chang's supposed to be Cedric's missus. I
not
cried
bothered.
more watching movies than she did losing her boyfriend. That's terrible. I think I cried losing him more than she did.
We know what she wanted really.
Yeah, she was all about the boy who lived. I will say though, with the spirits that come out, it's are we really supposed to believe that's the only people Voldemort's killed? I don't understand.
It's the last ones he killed. So
But
it's
how
the
far back do we go?
up until the plot decided it, I think.
Yeah, up until Harry's dad, and then they're like, "No, we've not asked by anyone before that."
Maybe it was a combination of the last people he's killed versus Harry's wand who he wants to see. I don't know, some bullshit. I know
Maybe.
in the book you see Peter Pettigrew's hand as well because that was one of the last spells. So you
Hmm.
see his hand floated about or some shit. I don't know.
I'd love to know what the hell was going through poor old Frank's man. He just come back and was like, "Well, what the fuck's going on here?" Like, I'd love to know what Frank's thinking at that point because he ain't got a clue what was going on. He doesn't know
Oh yeah,
anything.
he would have. Does he turn up in the book? I can't remember.
Yeah, Frank's there, like, and I think he just stood there like, "What the fuck's this? Like, where's the afterlife? Why am I stuck here?"
Why is his hand floating about?
But yeah, it was. I liked that. And then they revealed that Moody wasn't Moody, which
Yeah,
I think's done differently in the book. Whereas obviously in the film, he just asked about the graveyard, which Harry hadn't let slip yet. And but just seconds before that, we see him obviously struggling, like because the
apologies.
apologies portion's ran out and he's got none left. So it was already hinted before we let the comment to Harry, which I think it would have been more effective. I think if it had dawned on us as it dawned on Harry,
Yeah,
because we'd seen it seconds before that there was something wrong with him, and then it's after that Harry not realizes. But I think overall. I think it's a strong reveal, and it's not one the first time you watch, especially as a kid, that I saw coming at all.
no, I didn't see it coming, and you feel betrayed as well.
Yeah,
And it always throws me that in the next film he's just there, and you're like, "What? Nobody's got no hang-ups." Like we all know it wasn't him, but it's like you'd still be a bit like, "Oh, I don't like this, creepy as fuck." Um, but so we're just going to put this at the top.
I think we have to. But I will say before we stop, how the hell Mad Eye Moody isn't even more mad after spending what could be 10 months locked in a fucking thing. Like, you'd have gone bonkers.
Yeah, he seems more sane in the later films. Like, still
Yeah.
mad, obviously, but he seems way more sane. Like, Barty Crouch Jr. was way more mad than Mad Eye Moody. Well,
He
then again,
held
I
him
suppose this is
hostage for
Mad
like
Eye, but
almost a year.
then
Surely
again, I
he's
suppose
got lost his mind.
the bit where he turns Draco into a ferret and just chucking him about, love it.
That is
But yeah,
funny.
so current standing, we've got Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire at the top, with Prisoner of Azkaban, the Philosopher's Stone, and then Chamber of Secrets. How do you feel about the Order of the Phoenix?
Um, I think this is my least favourite one.
Well, this Battle Royale turned out to be really easy.
Why do you agree?
I hate Order of the Phoenix. It's Grace's favorite. I hate it. It's
Yeah,
so
I'm not
boring.
big on that one. I'm really
It's so
not.
boring.
Yeah, I think it's dull. I think the introduction of Umbridge is really well done, and the
Yeah.
portrayal was incredible to the point where a lot of people hated him more than Voldemort. Somehow, I don't know sure how Dark Lord who kills everyone and mean teacher added up. Obviously, later on in the series, we see she's far worse than we thought. But yeah, it's. I mean, the beginning's good. I think when the Dementors show up at Privet Drive and attack Harry and Dudley, that stuff's really well done. Um, the ending is really good, where they're all in the Ministry of the is it the Hall of Prophecies or something like that? I think it's called.
I will say, yeah, the as much as it's my least favorite, it does have one of the best fights, and that's Dumbledore and Voldemort in the Ministry of Magic.
Yeah,
That
that's
is,
really well done. That was like it was. It's essentially what I think we believed Yoda and Darth Sidious would have been in Revenge of the Sith, where
I
it's
was
like,
literally, do you know what? Do you know how we you always pick on me and I always pick on you, and you always say we're not really we argue a lot. You said a couple of things today, and it's like I was literally just about to fucking say that.
yeah. I mean, that's worrying for me. I've got street cred to live up to. But no, it is like you see these two wizards who were.
Powerhouses.
Everyone always said Voldemort was the only wizard you were scared of was Dumbledore. So to see them two go at like just to really essentially throw hands, but not obviously not hands, like to just go toe to toe, and it was just so impressive.
You can
And putting that with the showdown with everyone when the whole order showed up and Sirius was there and everyone was and Sirius was like laughing whilst he was fighting and stuff, and then obviously losing him. I think it starts and ends really well. My issue is just everything in between. It's dull
agreed.
as hell.
Agreed. I really dislike Sirius's death.
Which what? Just the way he falls into the thing.
He just kind of gets hit and then just floats away, and it's like, oh, he's gone.
Yeah, I think the way it's weird because when he's hit, he's still. It's like he's been shot. He's not dead. Like he's like
Yeah.
first he's like shocked, whereas everyone else is instant death. So I don't know why they just changed the rules for him to make it a bit more
Yeah.
dramatic. Everyone else just dies instantly. Like Cedric weren't looking about when he got hit. Like oh fuck, he just went.
That, and I'm sure in the books they explain what that gateway is, and in the films it's just kind of like this is a
It's just kind
thing,
of there.
and it just is it sucking his soul out? Is it does it insta kill him? Is he teleported and now he's fine? It didn't really. It doesn't hit. It's not got the emotional impact that I mean. Cedric Diggory had a massive emotional. I had more emotional attachment to Cedric than I do, and I know it's part of the problem with following the books because the books are bigger, so you can spend a lot more time. But in the films, you've got Sirius's crusty face in a fireplace, and it is it's not you're not really. I don't feel attached to him because he wasn't in the fourth one, not really, and he's only in the fifth one a little bit. Oh no, that was in the fourth one, the face in the fireplace, wasn't it? But in the fifth one, not a lot. You don't see him that much. Just a bit at the beginning when all the Dumbledore's army is together, and um, I didn't feel a connection. So when he died just by fading away, it's like, oh, okay,
Yeah, it
fine.
wasn't. It wasn't the big deal. I think it could have been if it was handled differently.
I got more emotionally disturbed by. Is it? It is that one with. Yeah, it's the Weasley dad who gets put
Yeah,
in
he gets attacked
by the
by
snake.
the
Yeah,
snake, which is another reason this movie sucks. Because in the book, they go to visit him in the hospital. I'm
another reason
sure.
this movie sucks.
I think that's the one where they go to visit him in the hospital. I'm going to get my
Yeah,
books wrong, but they go to the hospital, and that's when I'm sure they find out about Neville's mum and dad
yeah,
being tortured,
stuff like that.
and Gilderoy Lockhart's there.
Yeah, which
Who the
would have
fuck
been great.
decided not to bring him back? I don't know, because that would have been fantastic. So
And
yeah,
you cut out the stuff with Neville, and you cut out that subplot of the chosen, the second, who really was the chosen one kind of thing. And that would have made more interesting film, and it would have at least given it a bit more. But of course, they want the main character to be the hero. They don't want any doubt about it. So I think that might have been the reason why that was cut. But film with good bits, but not a strong film in my eyes. Though, yeah, like we said, that the powerhouse fight between Voldemort and Dumbledore is second to none in the Harry Potter films. It really is still one of the better ones. I think one of the reasons I dislike it as much is because it really leans in on the chosen one and the prophecy stuff. And it's just boring. It's just boring. It's just
yeah,
boring to me.
I agree. I also think
Don't you get that?
it makes Malfoy and that out to be like comedic characters at this point. Like the whole bit where they're like running through the Hogwarts trying to find them, and it shows them like it's the goofy the running is like when they're with Filch and they're like looking around. It's all really goofy, and it just no,
Which isn't great considering what he has to do in the next film.
I think it's just it feels way off tone for him. Yeah, I think that the Dumbledore Voldemort duel is probably the peak. That's as good as it ever got for like those sorts of duels. I think in the Harry Potter world, I think it was far better than the one between like Harry and Voldemort at the end. Like that's what that should have been, I think.
Like
But
I don't mind like the ones attaching and having that like Ghostbusters thing, but you had all the rest, like when Dumbledore summons up that massive fire creature and that amazing bit where Voldemort just kind of screams and all the glass just shatters and flies off. It's I'm gonna pull it out. It's phenomenal. Um, it's just really good, and but just let down by I can't don't think I can stress it enough. A fucking boring movie.
Yeah, although I do like the end when Fudge shows up and sees Voldemort after he's been
Yeah,
criticizing Dumbledore all movie, saying that they've lost it, it's not true, and then he sees him, he's like, "Oh shit!" and then like immediately fucking resigns.
yeah, yeah. I think it's a film that's needed for what comes after, but it's not necessarily a film that I need to watch. Like on a rewatch, I'm like, I don't need. I can be playing on my phone for this one. I
Yeah,
don't need to. I don't really want to need or want to be paying attention either.
I will say
Um,
though the stuff with Snape helping Harry with the memories and like I think it's called occlumency.
Stop trying to be cool. Oh, I think it's occupancy. You know what it's
No,
called.
is that
Yeah, yeah.
100% correct?
I'm
Yeah.
not pretending to be cool. I know what it's called.
Oh yeah, now I'm pretending to be cool. But when I say parcel mouth, apparently that's wrong. So fuck
Because it's
yourself,
wrong.
first of
I'm
all.
googling it while you're talking. I'm googling it. But I'm not having this hang over me for it. I'll apologise on here.
That'd be fantastic. I hope you do. But yeah,
Parcel tongue. Oh no, somebody who can speak it is a parcel mouth.
there you go, motherfucker.
But you said, oh, do you know what? I'm not getting into technicalities.
I said parcel mouth. I was right as always. Boom. And now I can't remember what my original point was.
Fuck it.
It's bad. I mean, it's not bad. It's just not good.
The occlumency stuff.
Oh yeah, that stuff was interesting. With Snape, forcing Snape and Harry to spend all that time working together alone as well. It was like quite interesting to see like the way the characters dealt with that, and you got an insight into Snape a little bit more. Which I think the fourth one was severely lacking. I think there were several characters in that took a major step back through because of the trial as a tournament. I think Snape was one of them. Whereas in this, I think they really put that focus back on him, and I enjoyed that. But yeah, other than that, it was pants.
So is it better or worse than Goblet of Fire?
Worse.
Prisoner of Azkaban?
Worse.
Philosopher's Stone?
Worse.
Chamber of Secrets?
Better. No, worse.
Bottom.
No
X.
spoilers, but I think we might have at least our worst one.
Well, yeah. Well, this next one is someone that might. I don't know actually because the Half Blood Prince has got again. It's a stronger, more solid film, but it's more about the individual moments than the entire film as a whole for me, anyway. But I always end up talking about the film first, so this time you can go ahead and talk about Half Blood Prince first.
Yeah, I think this is one where I really, really enjoyed the book. And like I really, really I can't stress enough how much I enjoyed the Half-Blood Prince book. The film, I think, was significantly worse for me. I don't know if it's I don't know what it is, but I feel like as they went along, the majority of them got worse for me. And this one I didn't enjoy that much. I like the stuff with Voldemort and Harry and Dumbledore working together and looking into like his former relationship with Voldemort and how he tried to help him when he was younger, and the stuff with the Horcrux, which isn't really explained until towards the end, is quite well done. I don't really know about this one.
But it's hinted at throughout the film, though, isn't it? Like when you see him in the Ponsieve at the beginning, like Voldemort's got like 7 stones on his window and all that. Small hints throughout. But you've got Jim Broadbent as Slughorn.
Yeah, but
Great addition to the
Slughorn was
cast.
really good. I like
And
Slughorn.
that's another character, kind of the complete opposite to Lockhart, and taking a bit of inspiration from Lupin, where it's a clearly tormented character, but he's got that Gilderoy Lockhart like charm, and he's lovely and he's sweet and innocent. But there's a torture, and the scene when he finally gives it up is some of the best acting in the scene. How ashamed he is of what he did, and he blames it. You can clearly see he blames everything on himself. The same way me or you wouldn't if anything went wrong.
No,
Um,
not at all. I'm a pass the book kind of guy.
I can never do anything wrong in my life ever, because I'm pretty much the perfect human being. So whatever. Um, just like you are, mate. We're
Yeah,
both nines. We're
that's
both
it.
we're tens. But he 100% takes on that guilt, and it really shows, and have that building up throughout the film, as well as who is the Half Blood Prince, because you are expecting it 100% to be Voldemort again, and for it to be Snape was like, I remember reading the book and being like, fuck. Even though it's clearly who it is, when you the more if you think about it, as soon as you realize who it is, you go, oh shit, yeah, it's Potions Master. Of course, it's gonna be fucking Snape. But you're obviously led to believe it's Voldemort the entire way through.
Yeah, I think that running mystery of the Half Blood Prince and like who that might be and how the book influences Harry, and we see it like the negative repercussions it has when he fights Draco in the bathroom. He kind of fucks him up using
Oh
one of the
yeah,
Half Blood Prince's spells and stuff like that. It's really well done, and I like the reveal because, like you said, it would have been so easy for it to have just been Voldemort again. Like everything that happens, it seems it's either Voldemort or Harry. There's no in between. So having Snape be the Half Blood Prince was really, I think that was a smart idea.
mm.
Um, and I think this is probably the best his character ever was for me. The whole reveal at the end, like the way he steps up and takes the thing from Draco when he's facing off with Dumbledore, and he takes responsibility. And at the time, we just think he's an evil motherfucker who's betrayed him. But as the movies go on, we find out otherwise. But that whole showdown at the end, and then when Harry's chasing him, and he fucking just like kicks his ass. He's like, "You," I think he says something like, "You dare use my own spells against me, boy," or something. He's like,
Yeah,
"I am the Half Prince." It's fucking awesome. Like, that's the best I think Snape ever looked. I mean, obviously he's not really a villain, but if he was, it'd be a badass fucking villain.
agreed. And one person we didn't mention in the Order of the Phoenix, which is a highlight of Order of the Phoenix, but again shines in this movie, Bellatrix Lestrange,
Hmm.
Helena Bonham Carter.
I can't believe we didn't mention Bellatrix. We spoke
What
about Sirius dying and didn't even mention the one that did it. What the fuck are we thinking?
But what a character! Like, talk about perfect casting, and she really shine. At the end, obviously in Order of the Phoenix, she's got the "I killed Sirius Black" as she's doing stuff. But as they've walked away after they've killed Dumbledore, and she's just blowing shit up again. Fucking nuts! Love her. I can fix her.
Yeah, she's terrifying. Like she, there's an evilness about Voldemort that feels controlled, where she just feels undeniably insane, and like
She's
she just wants
yeah,
to cause chaos. And I think she, as a result, I think she's actually scarier than Voldemort in many ways, especially to me. Like because you don't, she's unpredictable, and like she's just burning the fuck out of Hagrid's cabin. Like, what's that man do? It's like that 50 Cent meme. Hagrid's just like, why say fuck me for? Like he's just chilling somewhere. What's she doing? Like
well,
terrorizing the child.
she is like the Joker or the Harley Quinn to Voldemort's Ra's al Ghul, isn't she? She's and obviously you got Snape as Two Face because that's a clever little pun there.
Yeah.
But she is just unhinged, and there's no tortured soul. There's no forced in this position. There's no if I don't do this, then I lose everything. It's just I want to fuck shit up, and I'm gonna fuck shit up, and she does it really, really good in this movie. There's not a lot. I'm gonna say there's not a lot about Half Blood Prince that's memorable, but the fucking Dumbledore dies.
Yeah, it's a big moment, funnily enough.
Yeah,
That was really well done, actually, I thought. I also think the story arc for Malfoy in that film is really well done. I think that's probably Tom Felton's best performance. Like the anguish that he displays throughout, and like he's got this massive weight on his shoulders, and he knows what he has to do, but he doesn't want to do it. Like I think he's really well. I think his acting is incredible in that one.
it's it's a talk. It's really like these next last four films are really like who's the most tortured soul in the franchise, and from beginning to end, you see he's a manipulated and abused kid at the end of the day who's like, if you don't do this, we lose everything. We don't have a mansion anymore. We don't have anything. And obviously in the later films you can see it more that he doesn't want to do it. And this one is really at the point where you can tell the thumb is really truly pressed down. And it's a huge turning point for him, and it's really clever at the end. Obviously, what Snape does, and that he can't do it, leading up to Dumbledore's death, and you kind of after you've watched them all or know the story of all of it, you kind of go back and go, how much we all know that Dumbledore was manipulating Harry to a degree, but how much was he also manipulating Draco? Like, how much did he let Draco do, and how much did he let Draco be tricked with Dumbledore's own manipulation? So it's a bit sad, really, if you think about Draco, especially in the movies, because the movies did him dirty in the end. But like, he is just a person that's been tortured and manipulated into this big game, and he's just a what is it the sixth? So he'll be 16, 17-year-old, and 16, 17. I was emotionally fragile. I wouldn't have been able to put up with all that shit, especially if I was being told to kill my headmaster. Well, I actually probably would have done that. But yeah, it's a great characterization, and Dumbledore's death is one of the saddest parts of all the franchise, obviously, because you've got such a connection to him. And obviously, it spouted that what people do now, anytime an Harry Potter actor dies, it spouted the ones in the here, legacy of everything. And it's such a dour ending with a little bit of positivity, but it's such a dour ending.
Yeah, I think what I said about Cedric Diggory's passing and how it showed that even like competent wizards weren't safe. The Dumbledore one, it was like it really just signaled that we were in shit now. Like it felt like he was untouchable in a sense, like he was too powerful. And it felt like Harry always had him on his side. It was never really backs against the wall type of situation with Voldemort. Like you got Dumbledore on your side, you've always got a good chance. And I think it wasn't until this moment when they killed Dumbledore, it was like, job's well and truly fucked. Like, what we're doing now, like, no one knows. And it felt like the situation had just gone from one extreme to another, and everything just got 10 times more, I think, interesting in the sense that once Dumbledore went, it was like, okay, so literally anyone can go now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you
I think
knew
it
it was
hurts
close to
more.
the end.
I think it hurts more knowing the film before you see him as such a fucking, like I said, a powerhouse. And this one, we know what happens, but in the moment, it's, oh shit, I've been betrayed, and then that's it. You've caught me
Yeah.
at my weakest, and you obviously the way the film plays it is they obviously knew this is when I'd be my weakest. You obviously knew this is when you'd be able to get me, and it's all been manipulated from Voldemort's perspective. So you're thinking Voldemort's a fucking he is a player and he can play the game massively. But yeah, Dumbledore's always one step ahead, even if it means dying.
Yeah, that's it. But
So
yeah, it's fine.
it was fine. So would you say Half-Blood Prince better or worse than Goblet of Fire?
Fucking much worse.
Well, I just think I'm joking. Prisoner of
Yeah,
Azkaban.
we would have a fucking argument if you tried to say that.
Prisoner of
Uh,
Azkaban.
I think it's worse.
Okay. Philosopher's Stone.
Worse.
Chamber of Secrets.
Worse.
I think it's better than Chamber of Secrets
Oh, what?
because it's again like Chamber of Secrets feels like a continuation of the first movie. 3, 4, and 5. Well, 5 kind of different, but 3, 4, and 5 feel like its own separate block. And then this movie kind of feels like right now we're shifting gears again, and this is now we're running towards the end game. No, that's a different franchise. We're running towards the Deathly Hallows, and it's it's setting up all the pieces on the board, ready to be knocked down in the next film. And I think it does it all really emotionally and with a maturity than that the other films don't do. Like I understand where you're coming from because Chamber of Secrets is it's still got that whimsical nature to it. But I think Half Blood Prince really tackles a lot of stuff and does so, like you say, it changes the game. All of a sudden, anybody can fucking go. Harry's on his own now. It ends the film with him saying, That's it. I'm going on my own to find the Deathly Hallows." It's literally a setup. It's more of an Infinity War to me than Deathly Hallows Part One is to Deathly Hallows Part Two's Endgame. It really just, yeah, and So I feel like we're gonna have an argument.
Yeah, I don't know. No, I don't think this one's. I don't know, man. Like you even said, like there's not many memorable moments in that film apart from
Okay.
Dumbledore. Your words
Well,
were not many
yeah.
memorable moments in this film. And then you went,
I
oh
like.
wait, Dumbledore died.
Yeah, fair play. No,
I just think
you've got me there.
there are obviously some good moments. I think it's a fine movie, I think, and the Half-Blood Prince stuff I really enjoy. Seeing Voldemort's like backstory and his relationship with Dumbledore in the past, it was well done. Slughorn was fine, although that whole Slughorn, the club he has was weird as hell. Not sure what was going on there. Um,
I don't know. There was things at our school where it was like, right, yeah, you're invited, but you're not. I'm like, oh, okay, cheers.
by a teacher, that you should probably report that.
Well, I weren't a part of it, so I was more upset that I weren't a part of it.
But like, I think the beginning, because obviously every all the movies, there's always that one, there's always that little period before they go back to school, and for the most part, they're all really well done. Like the Marge blowing up was funny as hell. I think Dobby showing up was great. I think the Quidditch World Cup was great. And this one, I don't the Dementors in five was great, and this I think the opening to this one was really lackluster. When they go to see Slughorn, Harry meets Dumbledore and goes to see him, like it's just really boring. And I just don't think it's as entertaining a movie as Chamber of Secrets. I think it's obviously more intricate and the actual story, the nuances and stuff is more. It's a lot more advanced than Chamber of Secrets for good reason. It's aimed at an older audience, but I just don't think it's anywhere near as entertaining.
I'll concede because you got me on the memorable moments bit. But is
Yeah,
it
you set
better or
yourself
worse?
up for that one.
But is it better or worse than Order in the Phoenix?
Oh, it's better than that.
Oh, there we go. Then that's all right. Then.
Fuck, fuck Order of the Phoenix. Sorry, Grace. Fuck it.
I feel like I'm going to get it in the neck. But I know that's probably going to end up at the bottom, and I'm going to end up getting it in the neck for it.
Uh, rather you than
the,
me.
yeah, well, I'll give you a number. Right. So this is the big two that it ends on, and it was so big of a story that they couldn't keep it in one movie. So it was the first time one of the Harry Potter books got split into two movies. So we got obviously Deathly Hallows Part One and Deathly Hallows Part Two, very originally named. So Deathly Hallows Part One is how I felt about Half Blood Prince, but it is set up after set up after set up, ready for the big battle at the end. Um, People call it Harry Potter's Infinity War. I disagree. But how do you feel about part one? Because I really like part one.
Yeah, I think because obviously I read the book first, it was quite difficult. And at that point, we weren't used to seeing films split. I think Harry Potter actually started that trend where like
Ah,
different franchises after that started splitting movies into two different parts.
we didn't need two Twilight movies.
Yeah, I don't think Breaking Dawn is mean to Christ. Um, but yeah, I really liked it. I think the opening was fucking awesome. Everyone turning into taking the Polyjuice potion and turning into Harry, and the high speed chase. I think it was so well shot that like everyone going through the on the where they going to the burrow, weren't they?
Yeah,
And everyone like trying to avoid the Death Eaters on like the different brooms and stuff. And just being chased. Like the high speed chase was so good, and losing Hedwig first, devastating,
yeah,
absolutely devastating.
yeah.
And then losing Mad Eye Moody, but not even to a sense that you really knew that he was
Just
gone.
went, just
Yeah.
gone.
Um, it was as good an opening as you like. It was the way it was set up. It was like, oh, this is the stakes are really fucking high because usually the openings are a little slower. They're a lot less intense. It's just more like setting like the pace for the rest of the movie. Whereas this one, it was like, no, the action's here now, and
Yeah,
we're fucking going. And it was really good. Like, I think what hurts the movie is there is no real ending because it's only the first half of
do
the
love
final
the
book.
ending though. It's when he gets the older one, isn't it?
Yeah,
He like pulls open Dumbledore's grave, and it's visually it's a nice little cliffhanger, and it's very eerie. but yeah, you kind of. I mean, that's the point of the part one. But I don't think I've ever watched them. Oh, I'm going to watch part one and then watch part two next week. I don't think I only ever watched them as
Mm.
one movie. Um, but yeah, at the time it was like it's a cool little cliffhanger, but it's not like a huge thing because it comes after all of the stuff at the Malfoy mansion, all that business, doesn't it? Which is really good. With our boy Dobby dying, which would have had more of an impact if he was in more than just two movies,
Yeah, I think the decision not to include him in others was bonkers because obviously he's
especially
in
after the
more the
fire.
books. Yeah, it's just he disappears for how many years are between those two movies? Like 9, 10, like 2000. I mean, I reckon Chamber of Secrets must have been like 2001, and then
Well, it was
definitely.
there was one every year, wasn't it? So it was like only a couple of years, really. 'Cause they did one. I'm sure they released one film every year.
No, I feel like Chamber of Secrets must have been like 2001, and
Let's see how good your Google brain is now. Your parcel mouth is now. Harry Potter movies. This is where we're like, are we that good at movies? Because we're having to Google them. So Death Note Part One was 2010. Death
yeah,
Note Part Two was 2011. When did you say Chamber of Secrets was?
2001.
Oh, 2002.
Oh, I was close, but then so it's 8 years,
There was
8 years between
There was one
Dobby.
year gap between the first and the second. A 2 year gap between the second and the third. One between three and four. Two between four and five. Two between five and six, and then one between Half Blood Prince and that.
That's
So
so
not
it
that
was
many.
about 8 years between Dobby's appearances.
All of that just to figure out how long it's been since we'd seen Dobby. But
Yeah,
yeah, and it just feels like if he was more present in, especially Goblet of Fire, where the elf stuff was house elf stuff was fully cut, it would have had. But it still got me. I still shed a tear. It's a running joke between me and one of my friends that I cried at the cinema, and I always admit that I don't. But of course I did. It was very emotional.
if you cried, you can imagine what I'd have been like. Um,
You cried at Mamma Mia too.
Fucking right, I did. Sam and Donna, that's an emotional reunion. Okay, um, but
Yeah,
yeah, I think.
yeah, we're going to Mamma Mia a different day. I can't be asked with that shit today.
Yeah, but the Dobby stuff was emotional. I think the Wormtail stuff was well done.
Mm.
It's been misinterpreted though. I think people think he died some heroic death when I think he hesitated for a split second. It wasn't like he sacrificed himself. He didn't have a fucking choice.
Yeah,
Um, I like the stuff with the main trio, like in
camping.
hiding in like the woods and
Yeah.
stuff, and the strain it takes on the friendship, and it's largely due to like the necklace and Ron's jealousy. I think that's all good, and also just the scene between Harry and Hermione when they have that slow dance, because I feel like you very rarely get that closeness between those two shown. Like it's
Yeah.
always Harry and Ron, and obviously Ron and Hermione have the event like the love story thing going on, and it's very rare that you see Harry and Hermione bond as close as they should, considering how long they've been friends. There's not a
Yeah.
lot of time where they're just together alone. Whereas that scene, I think it was quite moving. The stuff in the cafe when they
Oh,
first
the
did the
cafe
wedding
bit's
was really
great.
well done. Yeah, I liked
Yeah.
that. I like the wedding to be honest. I think that was great. I remember in the
Yeah.
book, I can't even remember if it's exactly the same in the film. I remember in the book and the chapter ends, and it was after Scrimgeour had given the gift from Dumbledore and left. And then Kingsley Shacklebolt shows up and he says something like, "Oh, the Ministry is no." I think he says like, "Scrimgeour's dead. The Ministry has fallen. They're coming" or something. And even reading the book, I was like goosebumps. I was like, "Shit, I don't want to turn the page." Fuck. And I can't remember if it's exactly the same in the film, but that moment I think is huge, and it just felt so
It's like,
like,
is it? It's like a ball of light, isn't it? And everything goes quiet, and
yeah,
it's like pulsating and talking, and it's
yeah. And
just
it's
dead
his voice
eerie.
saying that Scrimgeour
So
was dead,
eerie.
and the
But it's also
ministry,
got,
saying the Ministry had fallen. I was like, "Oh fuck."
yeah, yeah. You've got all the stuff with the polyjuice potion again, where they change into the other bits, and Ron gets roped into trying to help his wife, which is just comedy gold the entire way. The people who acted as the trio, great, and going into Gringotts and escaping that way. All everybody says it's the slowest movie, but there's so much that happens. You've got the tale of the Deathly Hallows that it's done in that really almost Tim Burton-esque animation style, which I every time that bit comes up, even if I've got my phone, that bit comes up, drop it. I love that bit because they had the balls to do something a little bit different in what was at the time one of the biggest films to release. And all the way through the movie, no matter how slow, and it's that one where the fuck I hate it. It's so creepy with they go to meet Bathilda Bagshot,
Yeah.
and it's really
Godric's Hollow.
yeah, and it's really which is another nice scene because he sees his parents' grave, but it's really Nagini the snake in her body, and he fucking comes out of it and then attacks it. A really great bit where they knocks through the room and goes into that kid's room, and it's snakes just bashing about. It's There's so much in that film that's so well done. And it annoys me that people say, "Oh, it's this. It's just a build up. It's just a slow build up film." All the way leading up to Harry returning to oh no, that's the second one. I'm getting confused. I'm getting myself confused. Wait, is what happens with the snake in the second film or the first film?
I'm pretty sure it's the first because Ron's not back with him
Yeah,
yet, I
Ron's
think.
not there, is he? And of course,
But
you got all the stuff in the forest with the massively anticipated at the time naked kiss that was talked about more than the film itself was talked about, and it was a disappointment. I'm not going to lie.
yeah, and the Patronus coming to help,
Yeah.
and then obviously we get the reveal in the end that it was Snape, so it was really well done. Is it this one as well that at the opening they have the Muggle studies teacher hovering above the table, and then they feed her to the snake, Voldemort, and that?
Oh, I can't remember if that's the first one or the second one. Either way,
That
it's really
shit's
good opening.
dark. One of my biggest fears in the world. It's one of those like doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, it's yeah, it is in the first one because this. I think it's the first one because later on because it all takes place in the Malfoy mansion, doesn't it?
Yeah, and one of my biggest fears in the world, which doesn't quite make sense, but it is being eaten by a snake. I hate the
Yeah,
thought of that. That shit's terrifying.
that's. I mean, I don't think anybody's not scared of that.
I just don't think it's something that you really need to worry about, really. But that scene, it gives it's horrible. Like just the thought of being eaten by a snake, I'm like, nah, no chance. But yeah, I like that one.
So in terms of ranking Deathly Hallows Part One, is it one that you rank high, rank low? Do you think
I think it'll be a little higher than
the shit we've had to listen to watch? So higher or lower than Goblet of Fire,
lower,
Prisoner of Azkaban,
lower,
Philosopher's Stone?
higher.
I hate that we agree on it.
Right,
I wanted to argue more. I thought that
yeah,
would make
it's be a real debate.
I
And
want.
apparently,
I
we
feel
picked the
like
one franchise we seem to be on the same page about.
yeah, we did. So Deathly Hallows Part Two going above Philosopher's.
Part
Yeah,
one,
I mean Part One. Yeah, we've not
not
talked
part
about
two.
Part Two yet. Part One going above Philosopher's Stone. Like I love Philosopher's Stone. But yeah, there's something about Deathly Hallows Part One that just feels really special. It just really feels like I don't know how to put it, like methodical throughout the movie. It pays off in the third one, but the third one focuses more on a big battle. The second one, so it focuses more on a big battle, which we'll talk about now. So definitely Hallows Part Two. Obviously, the big focus of that is the Battle of Hogwarts, the final stand of Voldemort, the destruction of the rest of them, and last of the Horcruxes, which brought them back to Hogwarts because obviously the final film, if it didn't take place in Hogwarts, it wouldn't have made sense. It's really the only place you could have done it. How do you feel about Death House Part Two?
I think it's a fine film. I just think it
Fine
doesn't
film.
quite live up to the book for me. I think the battle and what they chose to show and what they chose to miss out is really disappointing. For me, one of the most emotional moments in the entire series is Fred Weasley's death.
Yeah.
And the way they don't even show that is, I don't understand the logic behind that at all. Like,
There's
it's
a, there's a lot about Part Two that I don't understand. Like, Ron's girlfriend from the fifth one. Like you see her being eaten by the
Lavender
werewolf.
Brown, yeah.
Yeah. You see them getting eaten, and
That's
it's
the
like,
sixth one, by the way.
think, what the fuck?
You're talking to a Harry Potter super fan now. I know
Oh yeah,
Parcel from everything.
Slughorn's potion.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like it lingers on the shot for a second, and then you don't really kind of see any kind of repercussions. The only people you kind of get to be upset about are the Weasleys. You don't really see anybody grieving, even like Lupin and Tonks. Like it's one panning shot and then it's done. Nobody
Yeah,
really
there's not a
grieves.
lot of time on it. Even like from the second film, that Colin Creevy kid with the camera, he's back in that fight and dies. And there's these you wouldn't
Sure,
know.
sure.
That's
Okay.
what I mean.
I feel like a lot more for the years and the franchise it's built up. Again, and I get it because it's called Harry Potter and but there's so much focus placed on Harry, Ron, and Hermione. But after building, it's unfair to compare it to Endgame, considering Endgame is a beast on its own, and it's very very different to Harry Potter franchise. But for all like to build this all up, there should have been one, at least not one scene, but a good chunk of that final battle dedicated to seeing how everybody fights, seeing everybody struggle, seeing everybody's payoff, seeing people's deaths, giving them that time, giving them their moments. And there's moments, there are moments like that, like you're getting to see Molly Weasley beat Bellatrix, which is a great moment. Like, it was get away from her, you bitch.
Yeah, something like that.
Aliens moment, and Professor McGonagall doing the best scene in the entire film where she brings down the guards and says, "Oh, I always wanted to do that." I love that bit in the film. It's my favorite bit. And you get small moments, but for a film franchise that's built up on all of these different teachers, all of these different students, it's from Order of the Phoenix really built up that the students have started to fight back. You don't, other than Neville, you don't really see it, and that's really a disappointment. The biggest disappointment of the definitely, I'm saying keep saying disappointments. I actually quite like the film, but the biggest disappointment is Draco. Like after all of that, his ending is to run away with his mum. When I'm pretty sure in the book he helps Harry fight back.
I think so. Like I said, it's been a long time since I read the book, so I'm not 100% positive when I say this. But yeah, the Draco stuff it's a disappointing payoff in the end. The scene in the room of requirement, is it the room of requirement where everything's exploded and
Yeah.
the Slytherin student dies? So I kind of remember because in the book it's supposed to be Crab or Goyle. I
Mm.
can't remember which one, but they didn't bring them back for the film. Um,
Well, he got caught with drugs. That's why.
yeah, I think one of them was you got kind of London riots. I think
Yeah.
crazy.
Yikes.
But yeah, the Draco stuff was a little disappointing after the great job they'd done in Half Blood Prince. I think the way they finished things with that character was very anticlimactic. I think Voldemort's death and the way they change it from the book where he dies like a human to this supernatural sort of death is very disappointing as well. Because the whole point of his death in the books is he died in the worst way possible for him, and that's powerless and just like
Yeah.
anyone else. And I think that was the whole point of the death. So I think changing that didn't really make sense either.
I think I mean there is still a lot of great stuff in the film, like the bits in the forest. Like I will never get over Hagrid carrying Harry's supposedly dead body. That's heart wrenching watching Robbie Coltrane's performance there. I really like I can't remember the name of the character. Well, Draco's mum. Like
Narcissa, I think she's called.
yeah, that's why he won the trivia game. No, you didn't win the trivia
I
game, but
didn't. You did apparently.
maybe he'd
I'm
win
not
against
buying it.
me. Maybe he'd win against me. Maybe that's an episode we should do. We just play Trivial Pursuit. Uh, like her turning on everybody just to make sure her son's safe, like keeping Harry, letting him fake it, and yeah, it's a really good film, let down by a lot of disappointing moments that could have happened. Like we could have seen the house elves if it was set up in Goblet of Fire, you could have seen the house elves fighting, and you saw like spiders and trolls and stuff, but you didn't really get the payoff that you expected. It was really all about what's Harry doing, what's Hermione doing, what's Ron doing, and all those bits were cool. Professor McGonagall fighting Snape in the Great Hall and having him very cleverly deflect spells to defeat other people and all that. We're not even talked about Snape's reveal.
No, we haven't, to be fair. That was well done as well. I liked that.
Yeah, and how it all finally at the end connected everything together and really tied everything up. And you look back at it and go, "Oh fuck yeah, of course, that makes so much sense now." And like I said with Prisoner of Azkaban, I finally at puberty. Like I said with Prisoner of Azkaban, if you hadn't have had that moment where he stepped in front of him, none of that would have paid off. So that was a really good bit of payoff. But yeah, I mean, Deathly Hallows has got some great visuals. The bit where he grabs them and they're flying and the faces kind of merge for a bit of metaphorical imagery. But overall, more of a dissatisfying conclusion for me. Ultimately,
Yeah, I just think that final battle left a lot to be desired. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't bad, but I think with the way part one had set things up, I felt like it was going to be.
epic.
Yeah, I thought we were going to get much better. And like I said, just the decision to just like Lupin and Tonk's deaths aren't shown in the book either, so that bit wasn't too bad. But I think the lack of relevance their death seemed to hold, like just the fact it was a blink and you'll miss it shot, and
Yeah.
then not even seeing Fred's death, which in the book is one of the best like moments in the entire battle because he's joking with Percy when they're doing it, like they're having a laugh as brothers.
Oh, yeah. Percy not having any really role in any of the films outside of the first one is such a shame.
Yeah, I think his arc is one of the most satisfying in the books to lean so heavily towards the ministry and then eventually come back around and join his family in the end. And like I said, be by Fred's side when Fred is killed. I don't understand the logic not to show it.
How do you feel about the final battle between Harry and Voldemort, with it just being another Ghostbuster style proton packs hitting each other? And I don't get why it does it when they hit, it's like liquid bouncing off each other. It's a cool visual, but what I feel like once you introduced it in Goblet of Fire, that was the main kind of this is how two powerful people duke it out. And it's like, this ain't Dragon Ball Z that did it cool. This is like, I know Harry's not the best wizard, but there should have been some kind of echo of the Order of the Phoenix's fight in in that final fight, but it wasn't. It was just a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and then he goes flaking away.
Yeah, I think that's the issue with that final fight. Like, you can't show me a fight 3 films earlier that's as incredible as Dumbledore and Voldemort's is and not live up to it. Like, to go back to Star Wars again, that prequel trilogy, they really made sure they got it right with that final fight. So, like, regardless of your thoughts on the movies as a whole, that trilogy, which I know obviously is very mixed with people, but
Not
that
me.
that fight on Mustafa, there's no denying it was incredible. They really pulled it out of the bag. Whereas the Harry Potter one, it felt once you've seen what they can do, like it didn't make sense to me why we didn't see even half of that. Like you said, just a repeat of what they did in the Goblet of Fire. Use some of your fucking Half-Blood Prince spells, lad. Cut him up like you did to Draco. Do something different. I've had enough of this.
I love the fact after all this. I mean, he probably should pay more attention at school than fucking about doing everything else. But he's still using Expelliarmus against
That's what I
against
mean.
Voldemort.
I've been using that since book 2, pal. Sort yourself out.
And before we finish up, um, the most controversial part, I think, of the entire franchise that some people either stop, exit to the menu, and take out the DVD, or they carry on and watch it, is the epilogue where they all very legitimately and very convincingly look like adults. He says very sarcastically. How do you feel about it? Because if I wasn't with Grace, I would turn it off and I wouldn't watch that bit. Grace doesn't like it, but still watches it because you have to watch one of the film, obviously. But how do you feel about the epilogue? I hate it.
It feels really cheesy to me. I think The way he has to shoehorn in all these different names, like, oh look, we named these characters after these people. Fuck off. Enough of that. Like, what does he say? Like Albus Severus or something. You are
Albus
named
Severus
after the
Dumbledore Potter or something like
yeah,
that.
like you are named after two of the bravest. Could you get more cringe, pal? Leave it out, man.
Yeah, and
Um,
it also felt like a bit like Draco was there, and obviously they're on better terms now. They're smiling, the wave, or whatever. But it would have been better if they had that after he joined him. Can you imagine a final scene where, like, I don't know, they're fighting Death Eaters or even fighting Draco's dad? I can't remember what it was in the book, but with Harry, Ron, Hermione, and Draco all stood shoulder to shoulder, and then you get the payoff as adults. You could see how close they were. I don't know. It just feels like a missed opportunity. Like they didn't want to expand outside of the main trio.
yeah, and I just think it felt tacked on. I didn't need to see all that. Like in the book, I get it's there. It is what it is. It was the way it was nice the way they ended it by saying his scar hadn't hurt him all these years. Everything was fine. But in the film, you don't really need that. Like I didn't need to see crusty looking Daniel Radcliffe with looks like he hadn't
Really,
slept in days.
really shit makeup. Like they look like, and no offense to people who do it, but they just look like people who do like at school like theatre, and it's like when you just look like an old lady, it's like okay, I'm just going to put a few dark lines around my eyes.
Yeah. Also, how many years is it supposed to be late? Like 19.
It, has got to be something like that, 1920.
So right now, it's 12 years after that film. Are you telling me in 7 years, Daniel Radcliffe should look that much older than he did then? Because he doesn't look that much older right now.
No, not really. Not really. I see him in films, and it's like you're still just Harry Potter, aren't you, Paul?
Yeah,
No matter what you do,
he'll never escape that, I don't think.
you'll never escape it. So, Deathly Hallows Part Two, higher or lower than Goblet of Fire?
Lower.
Prisoner of Azkaban.
Lower.
Part One,
Lower.
Philosopher's Stone.
Lower.
Chamber of Secrets.
Lower.
Half-Blood Prince.
I'd say it's there. That's probably about right. Above Half-Blood Prince.
Above Half-Blood Prince.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, I agree. Unfortunately, I want us to fight more, man. But I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to say like end this by saying I don't think any of the films are bad per se. Like I enjoyed them all,
Oh,
even a
no.
tiny bit, but
Oh,
some of them
no.
just a
Secret
hell of a
Order of
lot
the
more.
Phoenix has got some good stuff.
Yeah, I think I just enjoyed some of them a hell of a lot more than others.
Maybe we should do battle. Maybe the Star Wars episode should be Battle Royale.
Yeah, that'd be good. There'd be some
Um,
controversial opinions there, I imagine.
I will fight.
Yeah, Phantom Menace #1. Let's go.
I'm okay with it. I will fight you. Yeah, they're not bad. Like none of them are bad. They're all entertaining. They're not as bad as people make them out. You know, same with Star Wars or other things. People who don't like or haven't watched Harry Potter make out as if they're the worst fucking things ever made. And they're not. They're really entertaining. It's a showcase of British talent, 100%. It's a showcase of British talent behind the camera as well. Just going to Harry Potter Studios shows that like how much love and affection all these films have and how much dedication has been put into it. So yeah, so the first Battle Royale, Harry Potter, if you didn't guess from the episode we just done. So starting at the bottom and working our way to the top, our lowest ranking film, apologies, Grace, was Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix.
Not surprised by that.
No, to be honest, me neither. Followed by Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Then with above that Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part Two, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, fourth from the bottom, which I was expecting to be a lot higher.
Yeah, so was I actually.
Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone at number 4 in the rankings. So the top three is Deathly Hallows Part 1 at number 3, The Prisoner of Azkaban at number 2, and obviously, as soon as we started talking about it, we knew what was going to be number 1. The Goblet of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire at number 1. Feeling confident about those?
Yeah, I think there was no question of what was #1 was going to be. I
No,
think
I think we even said when we said should we do Harry Potter, I was like, well, it's Goblet of Fire.
I don't. Do you know what? I don't even think we said which one we both had number one. But I
I think
think
we
I
both
said I've
knew.
got one that I have a very strong favorite that I'd be willing to argue. And I think you said yeah, same, and then we were like, it's probably the same one.
Probably the fucking same
And it
one.
was.
Yeah. If
I think it's
anything,
just
Al,
Pete.
what's this? If nothing else, this episode has proved that you think a lot more like me than you admit to.
I know. And on that note, I'll be handing me noticing at work pronto. No one can see me again.
And I'll see you once a week. Do you want to
No,
quickly just? Do you want to quickly go through the Fantastic Beasts? They're all shit.
all bottom.
All bottom. I would go the first one, the second one, the third one. They get worse as they go along.
Yeah, although I think Mads Mikkelsen was fine. I think he was
Mads
better than
Mikkelsen,
Johnny Depp, to be fair.
if he was in it from the beginning, I wouldn't have been unhappy. But yeah, those films were just a mess. And
Yeah,
your favorite superhero Flash was in it as well. So
yeah, he was. I mean, I'm not gonna. Yes, they was. Sorry, I shouldn't have said he. They're not good films. No, I
you
don't
know,
know. I don't know how to tell you. I don't think there's anyone in those movies that is particularly great either. Jude Law's a weird Dumbledore. Didn't make
that's
sense to me.
strange. It's
Eddie
just that
Redmayne's disappointing.
they're just films that kind of break a lot of stuff down. I think they shouldn't have been. Yeah, they shouldn't have focused on that kind of stuff. And have you ever seen Cursed Child?
No, but when me and Eleanor first got together, the book was released maybe about a month later, and it was the very first present she ever bought me. So I
Okay.
read it maybe in 2 days after that. So I've
Are
read
you
it.
still
I've never
together?
watched it. Yeah, I've never read it again.
I've never, to be fair, I've never read it. I just take it on face value. What everybody tells me is that I probably should never read it, but I should watch the show. And I've never seen the show, but I really do want to.
No, but
Just
the
because,
con with the show is you have to buy two different tickets.
yeah, it's a bullshit. It's a bit bullshit. But apparently the production is amazing. Like on stage, the on stage magic, how they do it all practically is mind bending. Not just mind blowing, but mind bending. So
Yeah, I can imagine it's really good. It just costs a fortune.
yeah, cool.
Right, well, there we go. That was a an interesting one, which reveals some truths I don't think I want to admit, and that's that we agree on too many things.
Yeah.
But
I think definitely next time we need to pick something we know we're going to argue about.
yeah, I think Star Wars will be an interesting one because I don't know if we'll necessarily agree on that.
Or Quentin Tarantino movies.
That would be a good one. That would be a
Yeah.
very good one. But yeah, there we go then. That was interesting. Harry Potter as a franchise is fine.
It's
It meant a
fine.
lot more to me as a kid than it does now, but I still enjoy them if I watch them. I don't watch them half as much anymore. But it felt like something we had to do, especially before this new TV series comes out and just tarnishes all the great performances that some of these actors have done. I don't know what they're going to do. But yeah, that was fun. Thanks for watching, guys. You can. What am I saying? If you are
I saw
listening
it in your
on,
face then. Your face glitched. You didn't know.
yeah,
I
I
could
kind of
see
just
every
forgot where I
thought
was.
leave your
If you want,
brain.
if you're listening on any of the podcast platforms, you can head over to our YouTube channel at the CineMatch podcast and watch there if you'd rather watch our lovely faces and see some of the existential dread that appears in my eyes when I just get lost like I did just then and don't know where the hell I am. If you are watching on YouTube, then feel free to subscribe to the channel and like the episode, as well as heading over to those podcast channels if you've had enough of staring at our faces,
Listen
because
to us again.
sometimes they can be a bit too intimidating, how good looking these faces are, which
Yeah.
can cause problems. If you want to find me outside of the podcast, you can find my stuff on Twitter/X. I still don't know what I'm calling that, at Callum Altimus, where I tweet mostly about football and films, but also a little bit about wrestling now that I'm still on my hype after coming back from All In. And I'm also on Letterboxd, where you can find me at Caltimus, where I just share everything I watch, which is, especially after this busy week, is taking a bit of a hit. Like, I haven't watched half as much as I usually would. It's been
No, me
terrible.
neither. Though I did watch. I'm going to give it a shout out because I don't think people are going to give it the attention it deserves. But I watched Gran Turismo, the new Gran Turismo movie the other day. Solid film.
Really?
Solid film. Yeah, really good. I suggest people go watch it. Definitely.
Cool. Yeah, I'm meaning to watch that eventually. So yeah, I'll be checking that out. But where can we find you, sir?
On the old X/Twitter at nay_214, where I pretty much don't talk about anything other than Star Wars, let's be honest. So if you like Star Wars, give us a follow because I have opinions. And then if you want to really disagree with my opinions, go on Letterboxd and follow me at Nay214. Again, all of our stuff's down here. But follow us at Nay214 for my controversial, I say controversial, but my film opinions. Yeah. Also, if you're listening before, obviously you hopefully know we both work in cinema, but if you're listening before National Cinema Days this Saturday, September the 2nd, not to date this podcast, but go and support your local cinema. I'm not going to say which brand you should support, just support every cinema. Go watch a film for £3, watch as many as you like. And then when you've done that, head over to Facebook, Instagram, X and Twitter to follow us on the CineMatch podcast to find out what we're going to be doing next.
Yeah, because we've got some cool stuff lined up.
I don't know what we're doing next month. I completely forgot.
Yeah, I ain't got a clue either. I think you wrote it all down.
You what?
Didn't you make note of it all?
I wrote it down on a scrap of paper, put it in my pocket, and then wash those jeans.
Well, we'll have to come up with something then soon. But yeah, thanks for listening/watching, guys, and we hope you enjoyed the episode. And we shall see you again next week. Peace out.
We didn't even mention Wingardium Leviosa.